Folks, welcome back to Flatiron Tuning. We're here in the shop because I wanted to make a short video just focused on crankcase pressure. How do you measure it? What should you be seeing if you're measuring crankcase pressure, and why does it matter, or what does it tell you? We're going to dive into it, but before we do, just want to say, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the hype button. That helps us out a ton so we can keep coming back and making these videos for you. All right, so crankcase pressure. Every time I talk about some of the things that we've done to my car or that I'm measuring crankcase pressure, we get questions about how am I doing this, and I just wanted to make a very specific video just talking about that, just so that hopefully this is a better resource if you've got questions about how can you go about measuring crankcase pressure and so on. I have this oil cap that has this vacuum line coming off of it, and that is how I'm measuring crankcase pressure. This vacuum line just goes back to my factory boost gauge. Simple as that. All you need is a boost gauge, something that can measure pressure and vacuum, ideally within a reasonable amount of accuracy, because you're probably only going to be seeing a couple PSI in terms of pressure, and then maybe slight vacuum, like 1 PSI vacuum, if that. So you just need a somewhat sensitive gauge, but that's all that you need basically is a boost gauge. That'll kind of tell you what you need to know. Now, is this the only way that you can connect? No, and in fact, if I had this to do over again, I would not do an oil cap. I did that just out of simplicity's sake when I first decided to go down this path and try and figure out what I could see here, because it's temporary and I can just take it off and all that sort of thing. The problem is that every time I want to add oil or check my oil or anything like that, I have to deal with the hose getting all twisted up. So it's a little bit more cumbersome than I would like, but the advantage is, of course, I can just take it off at any time. I would say that the better way to do this, if you have any of the EJ series engines, they have the balance tubes. Basically the hose, the second hose that comes off the valve cover that just goes to the center and connects to the crankcase, that's going to connect to the crankcase just the same as the oil cap does, because this just sits on top of the valve covers too. That's all that you need, is some kind of a pressure/vacuum source that connects to the crankcase and then send it to a gauge. That's all that you need to measure crankcase pressure. So if I would tap into one of those with like a T-fitting that has a vacuum nipple on it, that's all that you need. It would be more recessed. I wouldn't have to mess with it every time I want to do anything with the oil cap. It would be easier. So that is how you measure it. Now let's talk about what you would actually see. Folks, this video is brought to you by the Flatiron Tuning IAG AOS kits. Now, if you just want an IAG Oil Separator, we got you covered there. But if you want all of the other possible hoses that you might need to do a complete install of the IAG AOS, we've got them for you. But actually, in kits, you can pick them with just 1 or 2 clicks. If you want the 3Mi AOS drain hose, or if you want the couple of other factory PCV hoses, part of the balance tubes that aren't replaced or touched with AOS install, we've got you covered, and we've got a kit. You just pick your year and model car, the hoses that you want. 1 click, you get everything that you need to do a full refresh and install your IAG AOS the right way with a 3Mi drain hose. So check out FlatironsTuning.com. We greatly appreciate your support as always. Now let's get back to that video. I'm in the car, and again, that hose, the vacuum line, just connects to this factory boost gauge. That's it. So this factory boost gauge, this is now my crankcase pressure gauge, and then I have my boost controller. That's what actually tells me how much boost pressure I have. So just real quick, let me start up the car. Let's see what happens to this needle. All right, so let's start the car up and let's see what happens. It did not move. It basically doesn't move. So here's the odd thing with this gauge. If you're measuring crankcase pressure, really, you should never see it do anything. As long as you're basically seeing the needle hold steady at a very slight vacuum, and again, normally, like even on our Pikes Peak car with the dry sump, which has scavenge pumps is pulling to pull vacuum in the crankcase, we see at most about 1 PSI of vacuum. 1 PSI of vacuum, just ever so slight vacuum. You'll probably just see it goes ever so slightly negative and just sit there and stay there. But it turns out that's great. If you want to see it holding, basically 0 or slight vacuum and never going positive, if you do start to see this come up and go positive, that is the indicator that there's something there, there's something going on that you need to get to the bottom of and likely probably need to address, so that you can basically hold a slight vacuum consistently in the crankcase. The irony of having this as a gauge is it should actually never tell you anything, but which is telling you a lot, which means that everything is working well. All right, so now with all that being said, let's talk about a more detailed explanation of what this actually shows you. We did a whole video on what crankcase pressure can tell you with Harvey from the Boost Group. So I'd say if you want really, really detailed explanation of what you should be looking for, what you should see with normal operation from the crankcase pressure, go back and watch that video. But here's the cliff notes, the basics of what you need to know. is as long as your PCV system is working properly, your air oil separator is working properly, you don't have any vacuum leaks, you're able to hold the slight vacuum that the turbo pulls in front of the turbo inlet to basically scavenge that crankcase pressure. Your crankcase pressure should always be at that slight vacuum. The worst case scenario and what you're looking for is any time that you come to wide open throttle, and especially wide open throttle with high boost pressure, and you start to see the needle move up and go positive. If you're getting to the point where your crankcase pressure is positive, like I'm talking even 1, 2, 3 psi of positive pressure in the crankcase, that's when that pressure is going to start pushing oil through the valve covers and through your PCV system. And this is where you start to see oil moving into the air oil separator, oil moving into your catch cans. And if you don't have either of those things, if you're using oil, it's likely because you're basically getting to positive pressure in the crankcase, and that positive pressure is moving oil and oil vapor through your PCV system, your crankcase ventilation system. So this crankcase pressure gauge kind of is a good health meter for your engine. If basically you turn it on, you drive it, you come into full boost and everything like that, and you're just sitting at 0 or negative, like just a slight vacuum, that's a great sign. If you're starting to go into positive pressure, especially into wide open throttle in full boost, there's a reasonable likelihood that you have some kind of an issue with the PCV system, with the connection points of your air oil separator, with your catch cans, some kind of restriction, obstruction, something to do with the plumbing that is not letting the crankcase breathe as it should be, and that positive pressure is going to move oil basically out of the crankcase and out of the sump where you want it, and into the PCV system and into your catch cans and whatever where you don't want it. So that's what it tells you, and that's why it's such an important piece of information to have. And hopefully this quick little walkthrough makes it a little bit more clear how you can go and measure this if you wanted to. That's your quick overview of how to read crankcase pressure and what it's going to tell you and why it's so important. So hopefully that helps. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for your support as always. And until next time, stay tuned with Flat Irons Tuning.